All right, welcome back. So now we're going to deal with the rest of the CRUD. Now CRUD in programming stands for create, read, update, and delete. So we have read so far, right? We're able to, read the data from our thing. We have it in a list, and we also have a detail view. So we're kind of reading in two places here. Obviously, create is creating something new, updating is changing an existing, and deleting is, well, deleting it. So let's figure out create next. I think that's the most logical thing. So what I'm actually going to do is above the table, we're going to add a button. So I'm going to go ahref equals, we'll keep that blank for now, and we'll make it say new, for instance. And if we go back to our list, we should see a new right here, which is cool. I'm also going to get rid of this. And we're going to give this, just to make it a little bit prettier, give it a class of button primary. And I'll just use Bootstrap to, make it a bit nicer. And I can also, wrap this whole thing in a text end, just so it kind of gets put over here. So it doesn't look beautiful, but it's there, it's working. Okay, so now let me just close a bunch of things. I'm kind of overwhelmed with my tabs. So Command K, W, we'll just close everything. And let's go back to our views here, and we're going to create a new view. So I'm going to get rid of this, and we're going to make a track. I'm going to call it edit, and it'll be used for both creating a new one and existing. So we'll use request here just for now. And in this case, we're going to get access to our template, and we're going to do track edit.html, and then we'll just return this. And actually we need our context as well, which for now will just be an empty dictionary. Then in our URLs, right here, I'm going to make it, we'll just call it edit, and we'll use views.trackEdit and track edit. So now back in our list where we have that button, let's actually make the URL go somewhere that makes sense. So we'll do URL track edit, and we won't actually pass anything. Just make sure we have our closing thing. All right, so now if I go new, we're brought here, and we have not made this file yet. So let's make it track edit.html, and let's just grab my track detail. I'm gonna copy it, paste it, just to get really this extend stuff, delete everything else. And let's just write the word edit here and make sure that we are in it. Yes, we are. Okay. So what we want to do now is, there's many ways we could do this. We could write all the HTML by hand for the form and deal with everything manually, but Django got some great tools for this. So we're going to make a new file inside content called forms.py. And within this, we're going to go from Django, import forms. And we're going to make something called track form. Okay, and it's going to extend forms.form. So we're making this class, and now we have to define all the fields that we want. So let's open up our content models again and make sure we find track. And we'll keep this simple for now, but let's have a title. And here, similar to our model, we do forms. Instead of model, we do forms.charField, and we can give it a label, and we can just call it title. And it's a good practice to also just, carry over the same max length so we don't have an issue. That will actually make the form input have that max length there. So we'll keep it like that for now. We'll go back to our views. And then we're going to want to go from .forms, import track form right inside our view. Okay, so in here, we are going to make our context equal to, and we're going to pass in the form itself as just our track form, like this. So we're just creating basically an instance of this track form, passing it in to our context, and then back in our track edit, all we really have to do to get started is put in a form, like this. And let's refresh, and we actually have a bit of a form here, which is kind of cool. And we can type stuff in, and everything's good. Of course, we'll also need a submit button. So what we need to do is actually wrap this all in a form, because the form itself doesn't actually have the form wrapper, which is what's used to actually, manage the data within it. And action, we're just going to make it a blank space because that will use the same URL that we're on right now. But we want to make sure its method is equal to post because we're going to be submitting data. Then, also within the form, we would go input type equals submit, and that will just auto-submit it, and we can give it a value of save, or whatever you want to call it. That's just basically the label of the button. And because we have Bootstrap, why don't we also give this a class of button primary. Button primary. Oh, that's strange. Why doesn't it look? There it is. I guess it just didn't refresh. Okay, so we have our title, we have save. Now, let's go back to our views. Now, we're just automatically always sending this back, but our request has a parameter we can get on it. We can actually check what the method is. For a GET request, we want to basically send them like the empty form, just like this. Otherwise, if it's a POST request, and we can get that by going with request.method is equal to post, we could do something a little bit different here. So let's for now just print like to do, and return HTTP response test 1 2 3, just to at least let this go. Okay, so I'll do that, and let's just click save. Oh, it's required, so fill it out, and I get this forbidden error. It says CSRF verification failed. So Django has this cool solution for what's CSRF, which is cross-site request forgery. Basically, like preventing people from hitting this endpoint without actually being there on this domain. And how we can get around that is within our template, we are going to where is it? Track edit. Right above our form, we're going to import this right here. And this will actually create, put a sort of like hidden field for us. So let me just go back to this normal mode. And if we actually view the source of this, you'll actually see what it did is it made a hidden field called CSRF middleware token, and then like this random value here. And that's something you can just use that, that will help ensure that the user is actually visiting this form properly. Okay, so now we'll try it again, test, click save, and now we just get that test 1 2 3 back, which is what we kind of expected, because right here we just say, to do, and we saw to do got printed. Okay, so now what we actually want to do, if someone does a post, is we're going to make an instance of form, and we're going to still take that track form, but we're going to pass in the request.post data into it. And then we can go if form.isValid, then we might do something like, let's just do the same thing as before. We'll return worked or thanks or something, because we know like they did it properly. So let's try that. So I'm just going to go to this page, test, and it says thanks. So, but now that we have, let's say it was invalid, it would just go through this again, and it would render, this stuff out. However, what we probably should do is put this in an else statement and basically create the form again. Form is just going to be an empty form, and then we pass in the form. And the reason we want to do this is if it's not valid, it will still pass through. It will still have this form here, and we'll still pass it. And if there's any validation errors, the form itself can actually render those to the user. So it's super handy for that purpose, which is kind of hard to test right now because we can't really make an invalid form. It gets sort of like protected by the sort of like browser being like, this is required. But we'll see it in a bit when we actually add more fields to this. All right, so let's get a few other fields in here. I'm going to skip album for now. That one's a little bit more complicated because it's a foreign key. But let's do duration seconds equals form dot. I think we can do an int. Forms dot integer field. And just simply by having that in there, now if we go to edit, you actually see we have that. What else? Let's do lyrics. And let's make that a text field, text area, I think. Let's see if that actually looks right. That did not seem to work, or it's just I guess, wait, maybe it still is a char field. There we go, lyrics. What else? Is published, so published equals forms dot Boolean field, or we have to call this the same thing, is published. So we got a nice little checkbox there. Then we have things like instrument type and tags, which we will just ignore for now. But let's test this out. Let's actually try and click save, test, and let's just see, this requires a number. Now lyrics, that is actually an optional field according to our database. So we can actually, if we look at the char field itself, there's some properties we can kind of override here. By default, everything will be required, but we can go required equals false. I think for this, we could probably set a default, but let's not even worry about that. So let me refresh this. So now I'll do test 2, 30, and just click save. We also, the Boolean field, we don't want to be required because, we'd have to have it checked. But anyways, there we go, thanks. Okay, so let's actually deal with capturing this data and making something with it. So I'm going to keep the form open. I'm going to go to views over here, just so we see them side by side. Then let's just try some things here. So let's first of all just understand what's going on. Let's print form, and let's also print form dot title. And let's just see what actually comes out when we actually submit this. So Tyler, duration 30, published, save, sure. Okay, so we do have, before this, we have, when we print the form, we actually get, all this lovely stuff here. And this is basically just the string version of the form, right? It's like the HTML actually got in. Now, if we want to get data from our form, for instance, we want to get the title, we can go form title equals form dot cleaned data. Now you can only access clean data once isValid has been called. You'll get an error otherwise. And then we actually just pass in title here. And let's try printing title. And I'll just refresh this. I might get us, there we go, thanks. And if we scroll down here, we actually see Tyler right here. So that's how we actually get the data from it. So let's duplicate this a couple times. And let's clean that up a bit. So we'll just do this, do this, do this. And let's just print all 4 of these things to make sure they are all coming through. Lyrics is published. And I'll just refresh again, resend. And we'll see we have Tyler 30, we have blank because we left the lyrics blank, and then we have true. So that's all working. So now how do we actually create it here? Well, what we can do is we can go track equals track.objects.create. Dot create, and pass in the things that we need. So title equals title, duration seconds equals duration seconds, lyrics equal lyrics, and is published equals is published. And did something weird here. Just going to quit that and clear it out and go back to the shell we were using. Okay, so let's just try this, save all these things. I'll just do this from scratch again. Form submission, just so we know it is the one we're making. 30 seconds, test 1, 2, 3 is published, save. And then we are getting this error, right? Album ID is required. So either, for now, let's just actually get this working. So I'm just going to actually make album ID equal 1 because we know we have an album with an ID of 1. So let's just resubmit that. And we actually get thanks back. And if we go to our backend, and go to tracks, we see our form submissions in here with all the stuff that we wanted and just sort of this, test album. And then it used the default of instrument type because we never passed that in, and we had empty tags because that's totally allowed. So that's cool. Now, obviously sending a thanks back is kind of silly. So let's actually redirect them back to the list view because then you'll be able to see it there. For this, we just need to import from Django to HTTP, HTTP, and I'll just do here because we already have that. We want to do this. And what we actually do instead of saying this is we're going to send back an HTTP redirect. And in this case, we want to bring them back to content/tracks, I think is the URL. Yep. Everything's good. We don't even have to really capture that. It's just going to create it. And now if we do another one, test 3, 111 seconds. And I do have to figure, the required is obviously not working on that. We'll figure that out after. But now we're brought back here and we actually have it right away. It's just good. It's in our database. I realize this should be required equals false for is published, and that's why we were having that issue. So if we go new now, if I submit, let's just actually fill the things we have to. We should be good now. Okay, there we go. Test. We can go to details. Everything's good. Okay, so let's figure out how to, because we're kind of just hard coding this, which doesn't make sense. We need a way to assign it to an album. So I'm going to get rid of this for now, just so we don't forget. And we need to pass in, essentially, options for that. And for this, and let's actually put it here, we can do forms.model choice field. And what we have to pass in is what's called a query set. And a query set is basically a filter of all the options we can allow. And in this case, we want to do album.objects.all. Now we could decide to filter it by various things, filter, but we'll just allow all for our purposes. And of course, we need to go from content.models, import album. So let's see what that looks like. So I'll go new. And we'll actually see now we have a drop down of the albums. So let's do album test just to see if this works. One thing we must do, we also need to get the album from here. So let's do album equals album, and then album equals album. Okay, let's continue through this. 60 seconds, we'll choose an album. We'll do test 1, 2, 3, and let's do save. And there we have this, and it is tied to that album now, although we're not, showing anything about, oh, we are, yeah, test album. There it is. So it's working. We are getting our, we have our our foreign key thing working. And we can just, keep creating albums for days. Okay, so let's say we wanted the ability to edit this. Let's try that out. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go to our, we're going to go to our URLs, and we're going to still use our track edit, but we're going to have another option where actually a UUID of a track UUID is passed in. So we have two different routes that are essentially mapping to the same view. And then in our track edit, now we actually will have a track UUID here, which can be null. So let's actually just print track UUID and just make sure all this works. And just to make it easy to get here, let's go to our track detail.html and let us make a button here. Let's do href equals, and if I can remember this, it's URL, and we do track edit in single quotes. And then we have to pass track UUID equals, and here we do track.uuid. Close that, and we'll just say edit, and let's also give this a class equals to button. Maybe we'll use button secondary just to make it look a little bit prettier. So now if I edit this and everything's saved, let's see if this will bring us to that. So it still brings us to the form, and we'll actually see right here we're getting the UUID. Now if we just went to /edit for creating a new one, we're having this, required positional argument. I believe we can fix that just by going equals none here. And then when you see it printed, it actually printed none. So that's all good. So now we have a way to know, if this is none, we do something. If not, we're good. So let's first of all start with the get part of this. And we can go if track UUID, then we want to make track equal to track.objects.get, and we can actually use that sort of handy thing we did before, right? We can use our get object 404 and just do this. That way it'll throw a 404 error if something doesn't happen. And let's actually print the track out and just see if this works. So if I go back to an edit page and refresh, we should see the test track being printed out right here. So we are getting it. So what I'm going to do is also make a variable right here called track equaling none, just so we can actually override it. So here, we're going to set track to none, and then we're actually going to pass the track along in case we wanted to, do something with it, and maybe we do. So let's do something in our template on the track edit. At the very top, we can do something like if track. Oops, I forgot the word if. I said it, I didn't type it. And we'll just do an end if. And we can actually go something like editing, and then we can do track.name. And let's actually put this in a h2 maybe. And it's track.title. That's why we're not seeing anything, track.title. So we actually see editing test track. And we could also have an if statement here, else h2 new track, just so you kind of know what you're doing. So in this case, oops, we have to remember to close that properly. And then we have that. So basically the difference here, if I'm clicking new, I should see new track. But if I'm on a detail and I'm clicking edit, I'm seeing edit track. Now what we need to do is actually pre-fill this with some data. Now in order to do this, we could pass data in here and then essentially have things like title equals track.title, if track else blank. And we can kind of do this for all the fields and set them. However, this is, quite annoying and tedious. And there's a better way. So before we get too far into this, I want to show you a better way that we can modify our form to actually work with the model better. So let's just save that, keep everything good. Now in our forms.py, instead of just using a form, we can actually inherit something called model form. And model form is really cool because we don't actually have to put all these things. I'm going to comment these out. And this works, kind of like when we're configuring like the admin or something like that. And we can just go class meta and we do model equals, and here we have to do track, which we're not importing yet. So let's import track. And then we just say what fields we care about in our meta as well. So fields, we care about title, we care about album, we care about duration seconds, we care about lyrics, and we care about is published. So let's just save that and see if we have any problems. So I'm just gonna go back to the, let's just actually go back to creating a new one. We'll start there. And we'll see we actually already have, this thing sort of built out nicely for us. And let's just test it out. Model form test album, 99 seconds, hello, and that should be fine. And now we have it, model form test. So that was just, a lot simpler. We didn't have to actually set these things. It used the defaults. Now there are ways to override what widgets to use, because you'll notice it's using, more like a text area here, a number field here, a drop down here. There's ways to do that, but I'm not gonna worry about that right now. Maybe if there's a reason for us to do that, we will. But yeah, that's just a lot easier. Then what we can do is I'm actually gonna move this code right here. So we'll have track equals none, and if track UUID this. Now I can make this even a bit cleaner. We can actually go track equals, and then we can take this code here, and we can say if track UUID else none. So this is like a Python's ternary functionality. It's a little bit different, in something like JavaScript or Dart or many other languages. They would be the equivalent of saying like track equals track UUID question mark, and then basically this get object something, or null. So it works a little bit differently. It's kind of more like, I guess, the English language, where you would say, the track is going to equal this if there is a track UUID, otherwise none. So that's just how it kind of works in Python, and it's fine. I think both are good. So that's just a lot easier than, writing this, and a lot cleaner. So we're going to do that. Then what we can do in our track form right here is we can actually go instance equals track. And just by doing that, nothing will change here because we don't have a track. But if we were, for instance, editing this, you'll see it's actually already pre-filled with everything. So let's try saving this, and we will have a problem, but I'll explain why. So we'll go with that, and we have track 222. It seemed like it worked, but it actually didn't edit the one that we were editing, which was this one right here, because we were simply just creating one. So what we can actually do, because this is a model form now, we can actually clean this up a lot more. I'm going to comment this out. So assuming the form is valid, we can just go form.save, and it will actually do everything for us. Now there's one other thing we need to deal with. We need to actually pass in that instance here. So we would just go instance equals track. And sometimes that will be none, sometimes it won't. So now if I just refresh, and let's edit 222 by clicking here, and we'll make it say 222333 and click save. We'll actually see it edited it instead of making a new one without any of this silly code here. So really, we've cleaned this up quite a lot less lines than before. And if we actually create a new one, because we're not passing the instance in, or we are, but it's none being passed in, new test. I love how my names are really good. 1, 2, 3, publish, sure. We save, we actually get the new test. So Django's kind of handling everything for us. We're not thinking about, is this an edit or is this a update, all that kind of stuff. So it's really nice, really handy, and great. Okay, and if we go back to our CRUD, we now have create, we have read, we always had that. Update is now done. So delete's the last thing on the list. So let's figure out the best way to do that. So let's go to our URLs, and let's actually, we'll copy the edit one, and we'll actually make it say delete, and we'll call this track delete, and we need to, of course, make a view for this. So let's make class track delete, sorry, not class, it's a function. So def track delete request, and we'll be passing in the track UUID here. And what we're going to do is we're going to require this to be a post request, because we don't want someone just like going to this URL and making it happen. It needs to actually be posted from a form. So if it equals post, we're going to do something here, print to do, and then we return. We'll probably return a redirect back to here. So I'll just copy this. Now, in the case that they didn't do it in post, we're going to return an error. So let's just do a we can actually just do HTTP response method get not allowed. Obviously, there's other ways you could handle this, but this will solve what I want. So basically, if we went to any of our tracks, and instead of it being, we'll go to the edit view just to make it easy, but I'll change this to say delete. We should get, oh, did I not save something? I didn't save something. Let's save our URLs. Delete, we say method get not allowed because we were just trying to get to it. But what we can do on our track, maybe we'll do this on the edit page. So let's go to our track edit page, and after all this, let's actually just add another form, and its action is going to be something different. We'll get to that in a minute. And its method will be post again. Post. And in here, we will still need the CSRF token, which is good. And we'll actually just have a input called, it'll be a submit, but it will be delete. And in which case, we should probably make this danger, which is a bootstrap option to make it look cool. Oops, and I forgot an equal sign here, which is why those are red. So let's just go back to our edit page, refresh, and we actually have a delete button now. Now if I click this, nothing's going to happen. In fact, it's going to try and submit on itself, and we're going to get all these lovely errors here. But what we want to do is actually go somewhere else. So in this case, we can do URL, and we can go track delete, and we'll need to pass in where the track UUID is equal to track. We don't actually need those there. Track.uuid. Now we only want this delete button if it is a track you're editing. If it isn't editing, there's no point even showing this button. So let's just also wrap that in an if statement to make sure that a track exists. So I can see it there, and if I was just to go here and go new, we shouldn't see it, right? So let's go edit, and now if I click delete, oh, it's saying something's not found because what did I do? Track delete. I might have missed something here. Track delete, track delete. It's because I forgot the trailing percent sign there. I was trying to go to a really random URL, so let's go back to this edit mode. Oops. Edit mode here. Let's see what this link goes to. Oh wait, it's not a link, so okay, so let's try it. Delete. So what it did is it just said to do, which is kind of what we expect. But of course, in this view, we want to actually get it. So we're going to do that same sort of thing. The track equals get object this. We know that there's going to be a track UID. It's the only way that this view will ever be handled. And then we can simply go track.delete. And we don't need a semicolon. So let's go into new test, click edit, click delete, and it's gone. Now, obviously, you'd probably in a real world application, want to have, some kind of confirmation box come up before someone can just delete something. But that's more of a front end thing that, you can, of course, do however you like. Okay, so I think that's a good spot to stop this one. We now have our CRUD, our create, our read, our update, delete. I'll just do a quick walkthrough of how this works again. So we have our different URLs. This was our list one. And this basically just gets all the tracks and renders a template with the tracks being passed through context. We have an edit that we're being used for creating a new one, which is the same as the edit for existing one. The only difference is you don't pass this in. And we're using this lovely model form, which allows us not to write as much code as we were doing earlier in this video to, essentially automatically create a form around it. Then we did the same thing for, updating. Basically, creating and updating is the same logic. The only difference is track will be null in that case and this case. And then delete, it was just a new endpoint that we would post to, and we would get the track and we would delete it and then redirect them back. So that's basically it. I hope you're learning a lot. Thanks for watching.